So for the second day in a row, we have new basketball news. This one is not as positive as the Bulls turning a new leaf. We've got reports that the Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell relationship is unsalvageable. I'm pretty sure it's because Mitchell believes that he got sick from Rudy being careless. From what we've now learned about this whole thing, there's a decent chance that Mitchell did not get it from Gobert, but it's also possible he did. You know, this thing, it sits in you for a few days, you don't know you have it, you're spreading it, that whole thing, right? But clearly Mitchell feels some type of way, and I don't even necessarily blame him for thinking that way because, again, it's not a guarantee he did not get it from Gobert. And also, real quick, just to mention, the league would have been shut down regardless of if Gobert was being stupid or not. But anyway, what's going on here? I mean, this is a dicey situation, man. I mean, how often do the two best players on a team have a rift? Even if it does seem a little one-sided, I would imagine, with Mitchell being the aggressor. Well, I mean, there's a world in which the Jazz have to choose between one of them, and they got to trade the other one. And I'll tell you right now, I'm pretty sure Mitchell will win that conversation. One, because he's way more marketable, and I'm pretty sure teams, like players and agents and all that, would probably not be happy, and they would not look at the Jazz favorably if they chose Gobert over Mitchell in this scenario. But the other thing is that we've seen from teams like the Warriors, the Celtics, whoever else, you can get by with solid centers, right? Now, if you have a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, that's certainly helpful, and if it wasn't for Gobert, I don't think the Jazz would have been that good the past couple of years, even if you replaced him with a solid center. But if you're forcing me to pick, if you're putting me in this scenario where I've got to pick one of these guys, I'm going to take my chances on being able to figure it out with a center by committee thing rather than trying to replace what Donovan Mitchell gives me. The other thing is, I feel like Gobert has hit his ceiling as a player. I think Mitchell still has more room to improve as a playmaker, and he kind of became a mid-range god this season, and defensively I think he can go up another level. So I think it just makes all the sense in the world to, if they really had to pick one or the other, to keep Mitchell and trade away Gobert. Now, another thing that I think is interesting in this whole thing is that Mitchell and Gobert's contracts are pretty close to being extended, and there's a chance, well, there's not a chance, I imagine they would have to max out both of them, and that could get very expensive for a team that is not, as of right now, a title contender, you know what I mean? So, in a way, this could be like a blessing in disguise if they didn't want to max out Gobert, because you know that happens sometimes where, or you have to assume it happens, where front offices are like, yeah, we don't really want to max this guy out, but what else are we going to do? So in a weird way, like if they had to get off of Gobert, then it would give them some freedom with the salaries and stuff, you know? Wouldn't lock the team in place and all that. And I think Gobert's impending contract is definitely going to make an impact on teams that would want him if he really did become available. Now, I guess real quick I should mention the idea of maybe they would actually choose Gobert over Mitchell. I don't think they would, but if they did and Mitchell had to be out, then, I mean, damn near every team would try to trade for Donovan Mitchell, I assume. Anybody who's not void of picks and some young talent or whatever. But again, I do think it would be Gobert if one of these guys had to be gone. And would teams be freaked out about Gobert's max? Or maybe max? I really don't know. I mean, what is Gobert in the hierarchy of the NBA? Is he one of the 25 best players? Yeah, he probably is. If we're talking strictly regular season, there's a case to be made that besides this year, he's been basically a top 10 player. But of course, that's not the entire story. But at the same time, for a lot of teams who are just trying to be decent, that could be a pretty big deal. And it could get you going on the right track. So, anyway, if I look at just around the league, teams that could use Gobert, the Cavs definitely could. The Hawks could, but they've already committed to Capella. The Pistons, yes. Knicks, yes. Bulls, you already got Wendell. You probably just hold on to him. Hornets, yes. Wizards, yes. Magic. I would take Gobert over Vucevic, but that team is so desperate for shooting that maybe you wouldn't do that, because that might make them the best defensive team in the league and the worst offensive one. Nets, yeah. The Pacers, I mean, would you do a Gobert for Miles Turner swap? That'd be kind of wild. The Celtics could certainly use Gobert, but given that they're already expensive, I don't think they would want to commit to his money. Toronto, well, to be fair, Ibaka and Gasol are both on one-year deals, but I imagine Nick Nurse would like the versatility of what those dudes do on offense. I don't think the Bucks would want Gobert. Would the Warriors want him? I don't know. I feel like that would be a clashing of styles, because they, I imagine, still want to go to Draymond at center a solid amount of the time. The Wolves, probably not because of Towns. Suns, I mean, I would take Gobert over Ayton, but I imagine they would probably just want to hold on to Ayton. Spurs, yes. Kings, I guess we don't know if Bagley is a center just yet, but if he ends up being a full-time 4, then yeah, Gobert definitely for them. Pelicans, would Gobert ruin the spacing next to Zion? Maybe, so you probably wouldn't want him. Blazers, yes, but they're probably going to keep Nurkic. Grizzlies, yes, but they're probably fine with Valanciunas. So it's interesting, you know? It once again comes back to the idea of what centers are worth and all that stuff. Now, to think about what would a Gobert trade look like, I mean, I don't know. It would depend on the team, and we're probably a decent ways away from this being a real convo, but if I was going to think about what the Jazz could get for Gobert, I would imagine you get a center back who's not as good as Gobert, we assume, but is at least solid. Could be just some run-of-the-mill guy who can just give you some minutes. And then probably one other good player of some kind, whether it's a shot creator, multi-position defender who can also make some shots. Granted, there's not a whole lot of those dudes in the league. Maybe it could be something really crazy where they get off of Conley and Gobert if they think the Conley thing isn't going to work out. I guess there are quite a few possibilities, and you could kind of talk me into any sort of direction, but again, I do think there'd be a lot of teams that would want him. I mean, if we looked at like the Knicks, for example, right? They're just like, you know what? We desperately need some sort of a foundation. Yeah, we like Mitchell Robinson, but I mean, Gobert is the finished product of Mitchell Robinson, right? Would you move, probably one of the Mavs picks, and then I guess would the Jazz like any of those young guys? I don't know. See, but even then it's interesting because it's like, would you rather have Mitchell Robinson for cheap or Gobert for very expensive? It's once again comes back to that center conversation. So, as I say with a lot of these things, I don't know. But let's talk about the idea of Mitchell and Gobert being fine. And they are able to see each other on a daily basis again, and it's all good, and they can just build the relationship back up. I mean, hopefully. It seems like this has been a pretty tight-knit group before this season. I mean, the on-court stuff was a little awkward at times, but it always seemed like Gobert and Mitchell had a pretty good relationship, but I don't know. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like they're going to be together for a while, because who knows if we end up playing any actual basketball. And if we did, that could be kind of weird, if both of them have to coexist on the floor. I mean, they're both professionals, they'd probably do the best they could, but if there's a real dislike there, then that would definitely hurt Utah's chances if we have any sort of playoffs. It was definitely weird to see the kind of silence around Gobert getting it. I feel like the only dude who showed him support was Evan Fournier, at least publicly. I mean, we don't know what happened behind the scenes, besides apparently this. I guess Joe Ingles had one tweet where he was basically dismissive of the idea that Gobert and Mitchell's relationship can't be repaired. And he's on the inside day to day, so that could be a good sign. But that could also just be a case of an NBA player just getting defensive about their team on a report that is accurate. Lou Williams has become the main guy at doing that, and it's possible Ingles is doing that as well. So we don't know. That's just going to be a wait and see thing. Another thing to think about is if Gobert was really not on the Jazz, what would they look like as a team? I guess just for my due diligence, if Mitchell wasn't on the Jazz and Gobert was, they'd be basically the same team. They just wouldn't score as many points. If it was the other way around and Gobert was not here, I mean, they could get kind of interesting with it. Like, maybe you could find like a stretch five and speed up the pace and stuff, and this team could look very different. Maybe they could do kind of like there's not a million of these types of centers around, but maybe you could try to do like what the Mavericks have done, where Powell is the roller and Kleba is more of the stretch guy. Play them both like 20-something minutes a game, and you combine to give both of them like $20 million. You could do something similar to what the Celtics have done this year, where Tice and Cantor's combined salaries are $10 million. There's also a chance that if the Jazz got off of Gobert, they would just fall apart defensively and it would all be for naught. Unless offensively they were just amazing. I don't know. The possibilities are endless. But for the sake of the Jazz, we assume that they planned on maxing out Gobert, right? It'd be kind of wild if maybe they just secretly never wanted to do that anyway, and this was their way to get off of Gobert. I mean, that's definitely possible, so yeah.